Boom! Welcome into Sports Bit Betting and Insight today. Pauly and Teddy. Tuesday, July 5th. Football's here. Part 1, Phil Steele in the deep dive. SEC and who's going to make the playoff coming up. Big game breakdown. Back to the Marlins and the Mets. Before we get to bad beats and bad bets, the big news. Kevin Durant going to the Bay. The Warriors now. $1.50 here in Las Vegas to win the title. The field is plus $1.30, Teddy.
Yeah, I'll take a look at the field at that price. And of course, we've already seen some win totals come up for the Warriors as well. There was a 66 posted at William Hill. There was a 68.5 posted at the LV Superbook. And of course, you can find them at 3-1 to win 74 or more games also at the LV Superbook. A lot of attention with this Kevin Durant deal. But the question is, Pauly, does it really make the Warriors that much better?
Well, yes, it's a scary offense. We're never going to see a team like this. There's so many guys. You might have the 3 best shooters in the NBA on the same team. And now, how about when they play Green at the 5? Green, Iggy, Thompson, Curry, Durant. How's that starting 5?
It sounds pretty good on paper. Let's see how it plays out on the court. We also got Durant. We got some props for who's going to be the higher scoring guy from William Hill. KD versus Curry.
Yeah.
Minus 175.
Yeah, they think that Durant's going to score more points. I don't. This is going to be fascinating how they run the offense and who gets most of the shots and how it works. And I mean, it's essentially, remember all those shots that Harrison Barnes got that were wide open? That's Kevin Durant now.
That's true. It's worth noting that when you see a big move like this, the markets are not mature. The lines vary dramatically from one sportsbook to the next initially. I just talked to you how at the LV Superbook that the Warriors are now 3-1 to win 74 plus. Well, how about this? If you go over to William Hill, just walk down the street here in Vegas, you can get, if they do not win 74, minus 600 the price over there.
I think that'll go down because they're in northern Nevada and they get a ton of California people coming over to bet, and it's all Warriors, all 49er money. How about who wins the MVP? What do you think happens with those odds?
Well, that's fascinating because obviously we're looking at the odds. You know, you've already seen the odds to win the title for next year. Interesting to see Boston on that list. But when you talk about odds for the MVP, man, it's a really tough line to make. LeBron's only supposed to play 30 minutes next year in theory. Russell Westbrook. His assists are going to drop. He's not passing Durant every time. And we can count on that shooting percentage dropping as well because he's going to have a lot more shots to take, and not all of them are going to be good shots. So I don't think Westbrook's stats are going to be great. You have Curry, Green, and Durant. They all finished in the top 7 in voting this year. Now they're all on the same team competing for shots. You know, is one basketball going to be enough for those 3 guys? What happens when one of them goes 5 minutes without getting a shot in normal rhythm? You know, do rhythm scorers stay in rhythm without the ball? It's a question mark. So who's the favorite for MVP? I don't know. Maybe look at Kawhi Leonard at a nice underdog price. I think he has the possibility of being a guy worth looking at.
SBR had a retweet. Guy tweeted, winning the title in Golden State for Durant will be like losing your virginity to a hooker. Okay, so he's catching some heat over this, but I went off on him in February because I was assuming Golden State was going to repeat and he was going to ride their coattails. But no, after what happened, everything, the door was wide open when Golden State lost to Cleveland and they came all the way back down 3-1 to beat OKC. Now you wonder if they're going to move Westbrook.
Well, and that's a question that OKC is going to have to answer. Obviously, Westbrook's going to be a free agent next year at this time, and all the talk that I've heard is that he wants to go to where the bright lights are, that'd be L.A. or New York City.
Yeah, bad beats and bad bets. A bad bet. Never go against Joey Chestnut in the hot dog eating contest. Come on. He breaks his own record. He eats 70 hot dogs in 10 minutes. What a performance from this terrific athlete, Teddy.
Let's talk about it. 70 frickin' hot dogs, Pauly. Okay, how long would it take you to eat 70 hot dogs? Even if you ate 10 a day for a week?
Yes.
That's tough, man. You mean the 9th and the 10th ones on Sunday? Ain't gonna happen. And Joey Chestnut as an athlete, I appreciate that. We appreciate that. And of course, they never set the line high enough. There was a ton of over money again on Joey Chestnut. And again, the sports books across the globe paying out on Joey Chestnut over the total.
Yes, hey, our play of the day, never in doubt. Mets down 6-0. They win and cover the run line against the
Oh,
Marlins.
that's brutal. Miami was as high as minus 2,500 in game when they're up 6-0. Obviously, not a good closing salvo for the Marlins. We talked about this on yesterday's Sports Bit, Pauly. Maybe the Marlins really were a little bit tired.
Yeah, bad beat Lucroy's stats. What the hell happened in this Brewers game? Explain this.
It's baffling. Okay, Ryan Braun, in the first inning, comes out. He bats third, his normal slot. He gets a single. Well, it turns out that they changed the batting order that day. Nobody knew about it. The manager didn't even know about it. LaCroix was supposed to bat in that slot. The play gets overruled, turn it to an out. And, oh, by the way, that out gets charged to LaCroix, not Ryan Braun. The MLB play-by-play, quote, Jonathan LaCroix grounds out to catcher Wilson Ramos. Ramos gets credit for the play, of course, because he was the closest Washington player to the infraction. One of these bizarre MLB rules where somebody wasn't paying a whole lot of attention.
Yeah, put a tent over that circus. In any event, the Nationals were a bad bet, as high as 260, shutout at home.
Yeah, back-to-back shutouts from the 31-year-old rookie, Junior Guerra. We've talked about him on Sports But a handful of times. Look, the Brewers are now 10-2 in his 12 starts and 26-44 in all other games. Guerra's been higher than minus 120 exactly once in those dozen starts, and his last 4 have all come at an underdog price.
Well, again, we told you yesterday about the tough travel with that game in Fort Bragg between the Marlins and the Braves. While the Braves were flat, they had nothing. There was a reason the Phillies were priced so high.
Yeah, they sure were. I mean, look, the Phillies got bet up from minus 150 to minus 180. The Mets from minus 150 to minus 175. Two teams that were facing opponents that had to play at 3 different stadiums in 3 different days, and both going from night to day. The books inflated the lines, the bettors nailed them anyway, and kind of almost identical moves. But you talk about the Phillies laying minus 180 or higher, yeah, they're laying it for a reason. The Braves are ice cold again, and suddenly the Phillies' bats are hot. They've averaged 6 runs per game over their last 8 contests, held under 4 runs only once during that span. Joel De La Cruz lit up in his second big league start after a solid effort versus the Indians in his debut.
The books got beat up. Just what you ran down there, Cubs and over, the Met. I mean, this was not a good day for the books.
But 4th of July, a great day for the bettors. Hope you out there in Viewerland were able to cash a couple of tickets.
Big game breakdown. Can the Mets keep it going? They take on the Marlins at home again, and the Tigers and the Indians coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.
Hey, tune in today to the MLB Odds Couple show here at Sportsbook Review. Pistol Pete, I think we got a damn good show.
I think so. I hope so. I got one big favorite that I'm liking, and something tells me maybe I should just stick with that. It's so tempting just to take one favorite, it wins, and you're good.
Right.
You're up for the day.
That's a good thought, but we can't stop ourselves.
We'll probably get more picks. So tune into the show, MLB Odds Couple show, July 5th.
Don't miss it.
All right, time for big game breakdown. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Marlins and the Mets. It's Chen against Mats. Mets $1.40, 8 the total. Teams fighting for second place in the NL East and also the wild card. And the huge turnaround, Mets rally down 6-0 to win. And Miami thought they were getting a good pitcher in Chen when he came over. Better pitchers park and a weaker hitters division. That's what they thought, Teddy. Hasn't happened.
No, not so far. Look, Chen's been pitching in Baltimore the last couple of years. At Camden Yards, facing a bunch of potent AL East lineups. He's facing the Yankees, and the Yankees are good, and the Blue Jays, and the Red Sox, teams that can hit. And look, over the course of that span, 46-32 with 3.59 ERA, solid numbers. So Miami pays him the big money, and he comes in going from a hitter's division to a pitcher's division. The Mets can't hit. The Phillies, even though they've been hitting lately, they're not a good hitting team. The Braves can't hit. And, of course, now he's in a pitcher's park at Marlins Park in Miami. But the ERA, a run and a half higher, Pauly. And you know what makes it worse? Lefties usually have an advantage on the first look after they switch leagues. A lot of guys, with some sharps that I know, will bet lefties that first trip around the new league because they have that edge. Hasn't been the case for Yi Chen.
And now, again, how they're above 500, what a story, because we're at the halfway point for Stanton. And you look at these numbers, career has averaged 265 this year. He's hitting 219. You see the on-base percentage and the slugging as well. It's a miracle that they're in this thing, considering the struggles of Chen and Stanton.
Yeah, Stanton's striking out 1/3 of the time he goes to the plate. Those aren't pretty numbers. He's had a pretty miserable season. Miami they got to be happy with where they're at right now. But so are the Mets. We told you last week that Steven Matz was worth watching closely against the Cubs. The Cubs, I should say. There was a lot to see. The Mets in particular, they're going to be watching that elbow very, very closely. Matt's dealing with pain. Matt's dealing with issues in the elbow. He's coming off a no decision. That being said, the single-game ERA of 5.06, the fielding and the pitching numbers of 7.48 versus the Cubs. Those aren't pretty numbers, Pauly. And, of course, his slider, which might be the best of any lefty in the baseball, he was afraid to throw it. Well, look at the graph right here. It'll show you very clearly. Fastball's down. Sliders way down. He's throwing his curve and his changeup more. That, to me, indicates that the issues with Steven Matz may be greater than the betting public is recognizing. I know he's not a guy I'm in any rush to lay a price with tonight.
All right, Rangers and the Red Sox, liveoddssportsbookreview.com. Red Sox, $1.89 the total. Griffin against Price. Well, nice sunny 4th of July in Boston. No, Rangers lose again, and we told you this was going to happen as all these injuries of the pitching staff.
Yeah, let's start ourselves with a little sports bit pat on the back. We don't get everything right. Boy, we got this one right. We told you last week that the Rangers pitching staff was in trouble. Until Lewis, Darvish, and Holland get back from the DL, they just have too many weak arms that cannot eat innings. Look at the last 6 games. Their starters, only 26 pitches. Only once did the starter even reach the 6th inning, and a 5.88 ERA during that span. The Texas relievers during that span, 25 innings of work and an ERA over 9. The bullpen's getting worn down, Pauly. Texas is in some real problems. Now, we did the right thing on Monday.
He did.
He let Nick Martinez and Michael Roth take one for the team. The Red Sox with 21 hits, 9 doubles, and 4 home runs. That leaves at least the bullpen fresh tonight. But that matters because A.J. Griffin only goes 9.1 innings in his first 2 starts back off the disabled list.
Well, now you got David Price going. You need a big effort out of him. His last start, 2 starts back at Texas, one of the worst starts of his career.
No, you're not kidding. He faced 18 batters. He got 6 outs. 12 hits and 6 earned runs in 2.1 innings of work. Sorry, he got 7 outs. The Red Sox offense rallied to win that game 8-7 against the Rangers bullpen. And boy, Boston is having no problems putting up runs against anybody. 29 runs in 33 innings on this homestand. How well did they hit on Monday, Pauly? Well, let's see. Xander Bogaerts, the only player that did not have an extra base hit.
Jeez.
Oh, and by the way, he went 3 for 6 and scored a pair of runs.
Yes. Up next, Phil Steele, Mr. College Football. We preview the SEC, and we take a look at his predictions, the 4 teams that are going to make the playoffs. That's coming up on SportsBit, Betting Insight today.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.
Phil Steele joins us now, the most accurate preseason magazine the last 18 years. 352 pages. The best college football preview magazine every year. And Mr. College Football, Phil Steele, joins us now. I saw Phil Steele 042 on Twitter. I saw you had a tweet about you finally took a day off. How long does it take to put the magazine together?
A good half a year is invested into the magazine. I start writing it the Sunday after Thanksgiving, so that's right at the end of November. And we finished the magazine this year on June the 2nd, so it's actually a little over the 6-month period. And, I have a staff of 15 to 20 people that work on it year-round. I invested about 2,000 hours into it. They invested over 10,000 hours into it. And I like to feel that the information in there is about 99.4% accurate.
Let's go with page 44. You have a Alabama-Florida State national title game.
Yeah, when I look at Alabama this year, they could very well be the most talented team in the country. The defensive line, or the whole defense, got a huge benefit this past year in the fact that Jonathan Allen at defensive end, Reuben Foster at linebacker, and strong safety Eddie Jackson all opted to turn down the NFL. They would have been potential first or second-round draft picks, opt to return for their senior seasons. That gives Alabama the number 1 defense in college football again. They always find replacements at quarterback and running back. They've got plenty of capable folks there. Receiving core, one of the best in the country, and so is the offensive line. Biggest concern I have with Alabama this year is the schedule. The top 4 teams in the SEC are Alabama, LSU, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Well, Bama has to play each of the other three on the road this year, so it's a very difficult schedule, one I rate the third toughest in the country. But in my power poll in the magazine, I do rate Alabama the most talented team. And then I've got Florida State getting there. That's going to be a titanic battle between Florida State and Clemson this year. Clemson's got my number one rated offense in the country, the guy I predict to win the Heisman, and Deshaun Watson. Florida State last year was number 128 out of 128 in terms of experience. Yet they went into Death Valley, gave Clemson a game. They almost won that thing in the fourth quarter. They led most of it. Now Florida State gets that big game at home. They've got 17 returning starters this year. The Seminoles have my number 3 rated offensive line, number 9 rated defensive line. If you're strong at the line of scrimmage, you win a lot of games. And their schedule more manageable than Alabama. Their road games, while tough, like Louisville, Miami of Florida, and NC State, pale in comparison to Alabama's road games. And they get that big game against Clemson at home. So I think that's enough to get Florida State to the title game this year.
You think 2 from the SEC can make it and the Pac-12 get shut out of the playoff?
Yeah, that's what I went with, Paul, because I feel the committee's basic goal is to put the best 4 teams in there. And an option would be if everybody's got one loss, then you're going to have conference champions because the conference champion factor. But much like last year, remember Stanford had 2 losses, arguably one of the top teams in the country, didn't make the playoffs, and yet finished number 3 in the AP poll after they blew out Iowa in the Rose Bowl. You look at the Pac-12, to me, they beat each other up. In the North, you've got Oregon, Washington, Stanford, 3 legitimate contenders. And in the South, USC, UCLA, and Utah. And they're all playing each other this year. USC plays all 3 teams out of the North. So I think there's going to be a lot of folks beating each other up, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Pac-12 champ this year has a couple losses. Same thing with the Big Ten. And if you have a couple conferences with 2 losses and you've got a team with just 1 loss, let's say an Alabama or an LSU, after they play each other and that's their only loss of the season, I think that they have the potential to get in there because the committee's supposed to put the best 4 teams in the playoffs. Alabama has my number 1 rated defense in the country. LSU has my number 2 rated defense in the country.
Let's start with the SEC and let's go to the East. You have Tennessee, a top 10 team. Why will Tennessee win the East?
Well, for 3 straight years, we've heard Butch Jones say, we're young, we're young, we're young. He cannot play that card this year. They have the most experienced Power 5 team in the country, number 3 in my overall experience rankings. And keep in mind, last year, Tennessee wasn't far off from making the playoffs. They were basically 4 plays. If you just change 1 play in 4 different games, they could have been a 13-0 team last year. They had double-digit leads against both Florida and Oklahoma in the fourth quarter, lost to Arkansas by 4, and Alabama at home needed a touchdown with 2 minutes left to get past Tennessee, a game the Vols led late. So 4 plays away from being 13-0 last year. This year, the most experienced team in the country. Joshua Dobbs, you got Hurd and Kamara at the running back spots. And defensively, 3 potential first-round draft picks in defensive end Derek Barnett, linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maben, and cornerback Cam Sutton. They do have to play Georgia on the road, but they get Bama at home. It's not an easy schedule. They've got a very tough 4-game slate. Florida at Georgia, at A&M, home to Alabama. But as long as they come out of that with just a minimum of 1 loss, I think Tennessee wins the East and gets to the SEC title game, which puts them 1 step away from the playoffs.
How about Georgia and Florida?
Georgia's going to be a clear contender, and the East may be decided on October the 1st. Kirby Smart's there. He's got 6 returning starters on defense. We know Kirby Smart knows how to craft one of the top defenses, and he doesn't have to do a lot of work. I mean, they only allowed 306 yards per game last year. They had one of the top defenses. Offensively, I think it's going to be a true freshman in Jacob Eason. And last year, when they had a healthy Nick Chubb at running back, they averaged 37.1 points per game. Without Chubb, they averaged just 17 points per game. Well, Chubb's back, Sony Michel's back, solid receivers and offensive line. Georgia's going to be a threat to Tennessee, as will Florida. Florida does only have 12 returning starters, but defensively, over the last 7 years, they have allowed just 18.4 points per game, and they have my number 10 rated defense coming into the season. With my number 7 rated defensive line, number 9 set of DBs. Offensively, I think Luke Del Rio, is going to step in there and give a much better quarterback play than they had the second half of last year. He's got decent receivers and offensive line, and 3 capable running backs, and Mark Thompson, Jordan Cronkite, Jordan Scarlett. So overall, Florida's one of those teams where they only have 3 true SEC road games, at Tennessee, at Vanderbilt, at Arkansas. And if they can keep together that amazing 11-game win streak they have over Tennessee, that would vault them into being an SEC East contender.
All right, Alabama and LSU in the West, as we mentioned earlier. Who can challenge those two teams in the West?
I think you're looking at Ole Miss is probably the best case to challenge. And Ole Miss got one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Chad Kelly. Here's a guy that threw for over 4,000 yards last year, and yet had an outstanding 31-13 ratio and ran for 500 yards. Probably the number 2 or 3 quarterback for next year's draft. He's got capable receivers led by tight end Evan Ingram. And defensively, once again, here's a team with 3 potential first-round draft picks on defense. Marquise Haynes at defensive end, Tony Connor at linebacker, and Kadarius Webster at cornerback. They do get Alabama at home early, and they've beaten Alabama the last 2 years. They have to play LSU on the road, but last year, I'll be honest with you, I thought Alabama and LSU would beat Ole Miss, and Ole Miss ended up beating both those teams. So if somebody can stand toe-to-toe with the big boys, here's a Mississippi team that was one fluky play away from knocking off Alabama and being the SEC West champ last year. They had that Arkansas lateral play in overtime, which ended up getting them a 4th and 32 or something like that for a first down. Had that play not happened, Ole Miss would have won the SEC West, and Bama would not have won the national title last year.
Yes, excellent point there.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Great job by Phil Steele. Part 2 coming up tomorrow. It's going to be the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. All right, Teddy, money time, play of the day. Let's go back to the SEC.
Yeah, we're talking college football, and let's talk about the Tennessee Volunteers right now. This is one that stood out to us like a sore thumb the first time we saw the number, Pauly. To take the Tennessee Volunteers under 10 wins. You'll have to leave a little bit of juice in order to get that wager, but it's going to be really hard for this team to win 11 games, especially when you look at that tough scheduling stretch right in the middle of the season at Georgia, at A&M, Bama, all in a row. Don't know if I trust Butch Jones to win the close one this year any more than I did last year.
Yep.
Tennessee under 10 wins. That's our play of the day.
All right, fun show. Durant to the Warriors. We're talking college football all week. We got Adam Hill to preview UFC 200 on Friday. Big show coming up. It's going to be a fun week on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.